In recent years, we've seen a noticeable shift in how established UK families structure and preserve wealth. Rising tax exposure, increasing asset values, and growing awareness of inheritance tax planning have driven more deliberate conversations about long-term control. One structure that has gained particular prominence is the Family Investment Company, or FIC. This is not a product, it is not a scheme, it is a corporate framework used by families who want to manage capital strategically while planning for intergenerational transition. I'm Jamal Khan, Senior Tax Partner at Churchill Tax. Today I want to examine why family investment companies have increased in popularity and how they function in practice and where they fit in within serious tax planning. This discussion is not about trend adoption. It is about structural thinking. The rise of family investment companies has been gradual but deliberate. It followed a series of tax changes that reshaped the economics of holding investment assets personally. Dividend tax rates increased materially over the past decade. Mortgage interest relief for individual landlords was restricted. The inheritance tax nil rate band has remained effectively frozen, while asset values, particularly property, have continued to grow. At the same time, trust planning has become more administratively demanding. Entry charges, periodic charges, and disclosure requirements have made trusts less appealing for families who prefer clarity and familiarity. A company structure offers both. Company law is established and well understood. Directors retain operational control. Share classes can be designed with precision. Corporate governance feels tangible. There's also a psychological factor. Many entrepreneurs are already comfortable operating through limited companies. Extending that familiarity into wealth planning feels natural. In essence, the family investment company sits at the intersection of tax planning, corporate governance, and succession strategy. At its core, a family investment company is a private limited company established to hold investments rather than trade. Those investments may include residential or commercial property, quoted investment portfolios, private equity stakes, or retained liquidity from business disposals. The distinguishing feature is the intentional share structure. Typically, the founding generation subscribes for voting shares. These shares confer control, the ability to appoint directors, determine dividend policy, and control investment decisions. Separate non-voting or growth shares are issued to the next generation. These shares carry entitlement to future capital appreciation but do not interfere with governance. This separation of control and economic benefit is central. It allows wealth to grow outside the founder's estate over time while preserving strategic authority. Funding can be introduced via share capital or directors' loans. In many cases, founders lend capital to the company, allowing the loan to be repaid over time tax efficient. Investment income is then subject to corporation tax within the company rather than higher or additional tax rate for income tax purposes. If profits are retained and reinvested, compounding occurs within the corporate structure. This model is particularly attractive where income is not required immediately for lifestyle purposes. However, it is important to emphasize that extraction of funds, whether via dividends or liquidation, reintroduces personal tax considerations. The structure is most effective when aligned with long-term accumulation rather than short-term income needs. Governance is equally important. Articles of association are usually bespoke. Shareholder agreements often define dividend policy, transfer restrictions, dispute mechanisms, and succession triggers. This transforms the company into a long-term family governance vehicle. Let me illustrate how this works in practice through a single structured example. David and Claire Mitchell are in their late 50s. David recently sold his engineering consultancy for £8 million. After capital gains tax, they retain approximately £6 million in net proceeds. They have 2 adult children in their 20s. Both are financially responsible, but neither is yet involved in managing family capital. Their objectives are clear. They want to invest for long term. They do not require significant additional income. They are conscious that if the full £6 million remains within their personal estate, inheritance tax exposure at 40% could be substantial in the future. They are not comfortable transferring outright ownership to their children today, nor are they comfortable relinquishing control to trustees under a discretionary trust. After modeling several options, our team at Churchill Tax Advisors helped them establish a family investment company. David and Claire subscribe for voting shares with minimal economic rights, but full control. Two separate growth share classes are issued, one for each child, at nominal value, reflecting the company's minimal value at incorporation. The Mitchells then introduced £5 million into the company via a director's loan. That loan is recorded formally and repayable at their discretion. The company acquires a diversified portfolio, commercial property funds, global equity exposure, and selected private investment opportunities. Over the next 10 years, assume the portfolio grows at consecutive average of 5% per annum. The capital value increases meaningfully. Because of the share structure, majority of that growth accrues to the growth shares held by the children. The original £5 million loan remains repayable to David and Claire. This provides security and flexibility. If required, they can draw down repayment of that loan without triggering dividend tax. However, the growth beyond the initial capital has now moved economically towards the next generation. From an inheritance tax perspective, the Mitchells have not eliminated liability, but they have controlled where the future appreciation sits. They remain directors, they determine asset allocation, they control dividend policy. The children benefit from long-term capital growth without being placed in control prematurely. This is not aggressive planning, it is structured incremental transition. Over a 15-year horizon, the compounding effect can materially alter estate exposure while preserving governance. The success of this structure, however, depends on careful drafting. Growth shares must be correctly valued at inception. Loan documentation must be robust. Anti-avoidance legislation must be reviewed. When implemented properly, the family investment company becomes a disciplined framework for general capital management. It is important to stress that a family investment company is not universally appropriate. If income needs to be extracted annually for lifestyle, the tax efficiency may reduce significantly. There is double taxation. Corporation tax followed by dividend tax must be modelled. This is, of course, offset if there is a larger director's loan account. If capital is likely to be realized and distributed in the short term, the administrative complexity may outweigh the benefit. Scale also matters. For modest asset bases, compliance costs can erode efficiency. However, for families with substantial surplus capital and long-term horizon, the structure offers several strategic advantages. It formalizes governance. It separates control from entitlement. It allows capital to compound within a corporate framework. It facilitates gradual estate planning without abrupt transfers. It also encourages structured communication within families about wealth stewardship. The rise of family investment companies reflects a broader shift in thinking. Families are no longer focused solely on annual tax savings. They are focused on architecture, on how wealth is governed, protected, and transitioned over decades. A well-designed family investment company is not about tax avoidance, it is about clarity, discipline, and intergenerational alignment. The increasing adoption of family investment companies is a response to changing economic and tax realities. It represents a move towards structured corporate-style wealth management within private families. When carefully designed, it can provide tax efficiency, governance control, and gradual succession planning within a single framework. But it's not a template to be copied without modeling. It requires bespoke legal drafting, careful tax analysis, and ongoing professional oversight. At Churchill Tax, we advise families on whether a family investment company aligns with their broader objectives. For the right family, at the right scale, with the right time horizon, it can become a cornerstone of long-term capital strategy. If you are holding substantial investment assets personally and are beginning to think seriously about succession and structure, it may be time to explore whether this framework is appropriate for you. Contact us for a consultation to discuss how a family investment company can help your long-term goals.